otherwise it's 10 a.m. So we will call our meeting to order-ish. We are in a position only to receive information and not take votes today, and so we will do that. We do have a full agenda, and I know Lisa checked this everywhere, all across the room. I can't make that happen. Can you advance the slide for me, sorry? It's just the big arrow, right? Mm-hmm. One might think that it was the big arrow, but the big arrow is not the arrow. I know you guys checked it everywhere. All right, well, we're going to get that slide advanced in just a moment, but I know the first thing we're going to do is look at an agenda that includes a handful of things: the chair's report, and then a number of items from discussion where we'll hear from various members of the state team. So we're going to hear from Adam around an update to financials for the Office of Early Childhood and out-of-school learning. Kim Rule is here to share some updates around family and subsidy supports, and then Tequila will give an update on child care licensing. And then lastly, there are a couple of legislative items that have implications for the Early Learning Advisory Committee itself, and so I will be happy to share those with the group. And then we have, as always, an opportunity for public comment. So we'll start with my report, and my report is brief but important today because this is the final meeting for a number of our board members who have been on the committee, in some cases since it was reconstituted in 2022, and have been a really important part of charting a plan for Indiana's early learning system, for the work that was done around the workforce, around the path to quality, and of course the regulatory reform as well, in addition to creating, at least in the modern era, a new roadmap for Indiana's early learning system. So I want to thank a number of folks on the phone or here in the room. So I'll start here in the room with Kimberly Brooks. Thank you for making the drive down from Fort Wayne one more time here before June 30th when your term expires. Also, I don't think Susan's on, but it's her final meeting as well, and we're grateful for her service. Mark Chamberlain, who of course has been a very active member of both our committee and the business community in helping to share the messages between the two, and so we're thankful for that. Madeline Baker, I believe, is on the phone, and so Maddie is a longtime veteran in this world, as well as of other parts of the Fort Wayne community, and so we're thankful for the contributions that Madeline has made as well. And then the final two, also joining by phone today, just based on scheduling conflicts, are Rob Moorhead and Sherry Searles, and they have provided really deep insights from the community-based perspective, and Rob as a great representative of the voice of school corporations. So we're thankful to all of you. I know on behalf of the state team here and in my role as chair as well, really thankful for the contributions. I'll also share that this is my last meeting in the chair's seat, and so it's been my privilege to be on the Early Learning Advisory Committee these past several years, and I just really want to thank the team from the Office of Early Childhood and Out-of-School Learning, as well as from the Department of Education, who have been just critical partners, of course, in this work over the past several years. I am really enthusiastic about the roadmaps that we've created around some key things that have been longstanding challenges in the state. And I look forward to supporting the Early Learning Advisory Committee as we move ahead in other capacities as the team figures out sort of the way forward with respect to those things and other matters that will undoubtedly come before you. So thanks again for the service of so many here and for the opportunity to serve. So anything you want to add there, Adam?
The things that, are things that we are looking forward as an office to start instituting in the future. There is so much information, thought, care put into the regulatory side, past quality, workforce, things that are very important things about, right, what what the future of childcare in Indiana is going to look like. So on behalf of the office of, the office, just want to say thank you, Maureen, for your leadership as chair, and then also for all the other members online that are rolling off. It is, thank you. This is, thank you for your time, your expertise, and your care.
Wonderful.
Could I just, hello?
Please.
This is Madeline, and could I just add a comment that we really appreciate the leadership of Maureen, who led us to where we are today. And I personally cherish our, friendship as well as professional relationship and the guidance that you have given to ELAC committee and some of the, things that we have accomplished. So Maureen, kudos to you.
Well, thank you so much for that, Madeline, and truly it has taken a team, and I've just been so appreciative of all the different voices that we've had around this table over the past few years. So thank you very much for that. Our work is not yet done because we have an important agenda in front of us here today, and I'll pass the proverbial clicker Adam's way so that we can hear a financial update from the Office of Early Childhood and Out of School Learning.
Thank you, Maureen. So what I'd like to do today is set a stage for where we have been. Well, frankly, I want to level set where we, from both from the ELAC committee perspective, give a little bit of history, and then also figure out, hey, where are we going, what our current financial outlook looks like, and how that will drive policy for OE CASEL here over the next couple of years. FSSA Secretary Mitch Robe has referenced the situation inherited by Governor Braun within FSSA as a, quote, mess. One of those messes is within childcare and OE CASEL. Children were enrolled on CCDF vouchers throughout 2024 with no plan to fund it. And after the horse had already left the barn, a waitlist was instituted in December of 2024. The budget debate around childcare during session was one that was about how much money can the state of Indiana afford to put into childcare under the idea that in the constraint of, do we want to kick any kids off of childcare, off of vouchers, right? And where we ended up here from the budget perspective is that, right, we will have the funds from an office perspective to continue to reauthorize families. That is an important policy goal. We also project that the level of CCDF vouchers will be going down over the next 2 years from a level of 70,000 to roughly somewhere between 40 and 50,000. This is the situation that we find ourselves in. Our goal today is to say, hey, where are we? Where do we want to go? And how do we think we're going to get there? With the assumption and the idea that OE CASEL's clients, first and foremost, are always children, parents, and child care providers. So to start this is going back to some basics and beginnings here, right? So the role of OE CASEL is twofold from a statutory perspective. We oversee licensing and regulation of child care. And then we also administer state and federal child care appropriations, CCDF funding, on-my-way funding, and then other smaller funding streams as they come up, like school development grants. Within all of this, there is a massive importance of vouchers to the child care system in Indiana, and we want to go through what this looks like, and from our perspective, what it looks like from an office's perspective. You all know this in this room, but this is how vouchers work. OE CASEL and it issues a voucher to the parents of a child. That parent then enrolls a child in a child care provider, and then that child care provider gets reimbursed money, right, for that, right? Very basic stuff. We're all in the system. We all understand how this works. But there's quite a few. What I want to focus on is what does this mean, right? There are many benefits from vouchers, right? Both from all parts here, from both the child care provider part, but then also the child and the families. I want to go through the red ones first. What are the benefits to the child and the parents? So first one is obviously families, right? So when I say families, it's what I mean is child care vouchers and the ability for child care to exist give freedom of opportunity for both children and parents, right? For children, freedom of opportunity to be their best selves, right? To get them on the path of, to do all of the wonderful and great things that they can do in their lives. They're having availability of quality early childhood education and childcare, but also then from the family's perspective, right? So we have these low-income families, right, that don't frankly make a lot of money. And we give them the opportunity, we give that family the opportunity, that parent the opportunity to make the best decisions for their family as they can. From an employer's perspective, a parent is also an employee, right? There's a work requirement in regards to CCDF and on my way vouchers, right? That employee benefits that employer from being able to show up at work. From a community perspective, right, working families and robust employers, right, make robust neighborhoods and communities. That's what neighborhoods and communities are. And then from a school perspective, right, childcare and quality early childhood education, right, we all know executive function and brain development happens between the ages of 0 to 5. And right, there's also a connection there between third grade reading scores in the state of Indiana and what sort of things people learn when they're between 0 and 5. So those are the things from the child and the parent's perspective. So another one that from our perspective here, a very important one that I think has gotten overlooked a little bit in the way we talk about this is what's the benefit to the child care provider? The benefit to the child care provider is that funding can then be blended in with other sources of funding, private pay, all of the things, to create more child care supply than there would be otherwise. There's a multiplicative effect from funding for vouchers that go to child care provider that then, right, one voucher can create multiple seats through the creation of a child care center, home, ministry. It helps that thing exist. And what that also means is that there's more children and parents that then have the ability to have all of these things happen, right? It's more than just the people that receive vouchers. So next thing is we've seen this, I presented this before, but there's been a couple updates to this. These are our funding streams, right? As a reminder, OE Coastal is funded by a combination of federal and state funding streams. From a federal fund perspective, are the two at the top, the Child Care Development Fund, or CCDF. That was the state of Indiana received $284 million in federal fiscal year 25. State of Indiana also transfers the maximum amount of TANF funds, which is $62 million, from TANF into child care to help fund vouchers. The next part are things that were state budget that were determined at the end of the budget session in late April. There's two main line items: the early childhood learning line, which for the 26 and 7 state fiscal years will be $39.4 million. And then the pre-K education line, which is $26 million for the next two state fiscal years. So the state funds for the early childhood learning line, those go to meet federal matches for the CCDF fund. So there's a match, the money goes to the match, that right goes towards that, which what that really means is that money goes directly to vouchers as well. The pre-K education line is the line that funds on my way vouchers. In past years, OE Coastal, because of the funding, because of a different funding structure that we have currently, the state of Indiana has used both federal and state funds in order to fund on my way vouchers. That is changing in this year. And then the bottom one, which is the important one. So what I mentioned in my introduction that state of Indiana enrolled kids on vouchers that didn't have a path to and didn't have a way to fund them. Over the last 6 months, the state has done two things in order to make sure that no child gets kicked off of a voucher. The first one is FSSA and the Braun administration allocated $133 million of TANF funding directly for child care funding, for child care vouchers, and to help fill the gap. And in the state legislature, along in the state budget, along with Governor Braun's approval and signature, allocated or appropriated $147 million of state funds, state general funds to childcare. So in total, the state of Indiana has appropriated or allocated over $275 million to fix the problem that we found ourselves in, which is that we didn't have enough money to fund vouchers starting at the beginning of this year. So this is where we are. So how do we get here? So a little bit of it, I'd like to go through a little bit of history just to help to get us to hopefully get to a better place in the future here. Looking at the graph, right? This is a total annual expenses by state fiscal year for OE-CASA. You go back to 2018, 19, 20, historical expenses are roughly $200 to $250 million in those 3 years. And then COVID happened. And with COVID came ARPA funding. And with ARPA funding, that was $1.2 billion over in 2021 and 22 that was spent between the years of 2021 through 2025. So those funds then eventually rolled off in September of 2024. What this means is there is a dramatic influx of funding into childcare in Indiana. So what did that create? It created good things, actually, right? It created 2 really good things, right? The first one is one of the graph on the right is CCDF voucher enrollments over time. So you're looking at, if you look at the, during the pandemic in that 2021 area to where we are today and when the waitlist was instituted, there's been a 75% increase in the amount of CCDF vouchers since 2021. And that's good in and of itself, but there's also the secondary aggregate childcare supply effect, which we see on the graph on the left, which is childcare supply in Indiana has also increased by 20% since 2021. And we know that that's not enough, right? We know that there's more demand out there for childcare as well. Actually, I'm going to go back. On the CCDF voucher enrollment slide there, you can see, we can see actually on those graphs, the yellow line is when the waitlist was instituted. So there's 2 things going on here. One, you can see the rollover as the rollover since December and the amount of CCDF vouchers that the state of Indiana funds. And that's through natural attrition, right? It's when the parent and the family chooses to no longer need the voucher, that's when they roll off. And we can also see that actually regulated child care supply in Indiana continues to increase even in the last 6 months. So that's where we've been. That's some historical data. So now I want to go and just briefly touch on where we are and where we're going to go here. So graph on the left is our projected. The yellow bars are our projected total annual expenses based off of funding for the next 2 state fiscal years. So in 2024, total annual expenses were $655 million, 25, $600 million. In 26, we project $523 million, and 2017, $417. So what that means is that there's a 43% decrease in the amount of OE-CASA funding between 2025 and 2027. And this also assumes that federal appropriations of CCDBG funding be flat year over year. So we are in a situation as an office, and then also more broadly as the child care system in Indiana, is that there has been a reliance on federal funding to increase CCDF vouchers and also increase supply. That is going away, and that's where we are. So from an office's perspective,
and Adam, just so everybody's clear, so this is based on the state fiscal year. So 26 here is the year that starts July 1st.
Yes, it is. Yes, yes, yeah. Thank you. Yes, yeah.
Coming right up on the yellow.
Yeah. So we are almost finished with state fiscal year 25, it ends on 6/30, and then state fiscal year 26 begins on 7/1. So what does this mean? right, from OE Apostle's perspective and an office perspective? Well, the first thing is, and I've mentioned it multiple times already, there's been a policy decision at many levels within state government that the state of Indiana does not want to get kids off of vouchers, and we will not, right? Our first and foremost goal as a office and as an agency is to make sure that doesn't happen, right? And is to manage our funding accordingly. Second priority is to do fiscal responsibility and to manage our funding appropriately, with the twin goals, not only of just making sure that no kid that all children and all parents get to reauthorize vouchers whenever they want for as long as they want, is that the next goal is enrolling that first child again on CCDF vouchers. And I will tell everybody here that I am looking forward to that day. Our third priority, which is a little bit different than priorities of the past, is looking at supply and understanding the importance of the investments that have been made in childcare system in Indiana. Has created supply. And so what strategies can we pursue as an office to help maintain that supply that has grown over the last 4 years? And if we can, grow it even further than we have now in some, if possible. So from our perspective, we understand that we need more childcare in Indiana and we need to keep what we have. From a regulatory perspective, that means reducing administrative burden. It's things that we've talked about, that I've talked about here at ELAC meetings. And as Maureen said earlier, a lot of work has been done by this committee, and we're going to get it done. And thank you for all your work on that. It has helped set the stage and make our lives much easier in order to have starting points. From the supply side perspective, micro-facility offices. We have a pilot program that we have, well, Tequila will talk about it more later on. 6 micro-facility pilots were created and got off the ground in April and May. We are very excited about what that looks like. We are strongly considering adding an additional regulatory auspice around micro-facilities. And from a broad perspective, the office, we are and will continue to explore supply side grant programs in order to figure out ways on how can we help support the supply of childcare in Indiana. So from the demand side of things, right, which is vouchers, I will reiterate it yet one more time. From a CCDF voucher perspective, the priority is to continue to re-enroll children as they come up and have the funding available to do that. With the second part being, we are doing all we can in order to get that next child enrolled, that first new child enrolled on CCDF vouchers. We know how important it is. And then from an On My Way perspective, I mentioned it earlier, but I will say it again, that because we do not have any federal funds to allocate towards the On My Way program, the reimbursement rate this year is decreased than it has been in the past. We will be reimbursing at the statutory maximum reimbursement rate of $6,800 per voucher. And we project, because we are only using state funds as well, approximately 2,500 vouchers for that program.
Adam, fair to say if you had an estimate for when that first new child might be enrolled, you would provide that?
Yes, we will provide it when we have a clear handle on it. And we, I want to be real clear about this, is that, the worst thing that we can do in office is promise something that won't happen, right? The thing that we can do, we have a much better handle on what those projections look like in the future. And we understand the importance of it. And the last thing that I want our office to do is to put hopes on people, right, within the childcare system, right? I, like everybody else here, understands how important they are to operators, not how important they are to operations. And as we get closer to that date, we will be sharing more information around when is the date, how many vouchers at a certain time, what's our projections over the next couple of years, about how many vouchers at a time, things like that. Are there various policy priorities that we will be instituting as well? Those things are all to be determined.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, last thing I would like to add here, and then I'll pass it over to Kim. FSSA has instituted something that we are calling a quarterly financial review. It is a public quarterly meeting to present financials of all sub-agencies within FSSA, including OE COSL. Secretary Rowe, FSSA, and myself as well, we are all about transparency of financials. And one could argue that some of the situations that we are in here with OE COSL is because there wasn't that transparency. So, next meeting of this, we had one in May. It is on the FSSA YouTube site to stream it if you'd like to go watch that. The next one is August 6th at the Indiana Government Center South in the first floor auditorium. You are welcome to come in person. We want you to come in person. We love engaging with, we as an office and we within FSSA we view it as an opportunity to engage with people who care about this stuff just as much as we do. If you can't make it, like I said earlier, it will also be streamed on the FSSA website. The OE COSL presentation is roughly about half an hour to 40 minutes. But if you'd like to know all things about FSSA, one has the opportunity to spend as many hours as one would like that day to learn all about FSSA financials and funding. So
Bring snacks.
And drinks, yes. So thank you. Right.
Wonderful. Other questions for Adam from committee members?
Sam has a comment.
Sam, please.
Yes, I'm sorry I couldn't be with you all. I am in Georgia, capital, so hello from Georgia.
Thank you for joining us from the great state of Georgia.
That's right. Real quick, unpack a little bit around the CPF funding with on. I just think that I've
Sam, you're a bit choppy here. And maybe you can text your question to Lisa and she can read it to us.
I can. Yep, I'll do that.
Well, actually, that we heard perfectly. So maybe try it one more time.
I just wanted to see if Adam could unpack the decision to decouple the CCDF and On My Way.
I think we've got the gist of it.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. I think I got it. Yes. The decision around decoupling CCDF and On My Way vouchers effectively comes down is that all of our federal funds have been it was already effectively allocated towards existing CCDF voucher holders. In past years, there's been policy decisions that have allowed flexibility around combining those two. This year, because of the wait list and the financial position of OE COSL and those federal funds, is that we did not have additional federal funds to allocate towards that On My Way program.
Any follow-ups there, Sam?
He's typing.
Okay. So if
I was hoping it would made him speechless. I was like, it's not that good of an answer,
I don't
Sam.
think it's ever made Sam.
No.
So fair to say that it really was about the pragmatics of the situation,
Yes.
and more than a over policy decision. Really, there was no choice.
It's a
financial.
it's a fiscal decision, right? It was a fiscal. Yep. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the unfortunate ramifications of, as you said, the article, right?
Sam's adding to that, Lisa.
Yes, he said, okay, can you help me understand then the 2,500 cap for On My Way pre-K? I get the tight fiscal, but there seems to be potentially unused in the On My Way pre-K appropriation.
We are conservatively projecting 2,500. We hope it may be more, but we're going to have to know a little bit more about what those 2,500 vouchers look like once we enroll them. So a technical part here is that those On My Way vouchers, at the end of the On My Way program, those families then have the opportunity to enroll as a CCDF voucher. And So it's making sure that we have enough funding to also, at least now on the front end, right, when we initiate the program here, to make sure that that funding exists, that we can, then we're not putting ourselves in a worse financial position by over-enrolling on my way voucher site.
Sorry, go right ahead.
This is Rob. I hope the sound is okay.
It is, yeah, you sound fine.
Good deal.
It's Georgia that's a problem.
Just following up then, safe to say that there will be no additional On My Way students enrolling then for this upcoming school year if they weren't in a school district or in a situation where they were already approved in the past. Is that fair to say?
Say that one more time, Rob. Will you say that one more time?
Yes. So basically, from a fiscal standpoint, with On My Way Pre-K, there's no room to add additional On My Way Pre-K students going into this school year. Is that accurate?
Well, I mean, the enrollment for On My Way is new every year, right? So just, and it's only for 4-year-olds, right? So you have a new, effectively a new group of 4-year-olds that can enroll to that every year. So I guess the answer to your question is no, that's not correct. We will, there'll be the process will occur, right, for 4-year-olds as, right, we have pretty good number right now that are on the wait list looking to be enrolled here pretty soon. But those are all going to effectively, all of those On My Way vouchers will be new to that specific child.
I guess maybe I didn't phrase it very well. I guess, referencing the wait list. So if a student is not already on the wait list, they're probably not going to be able to get one of those vouchers.
To be determined.
Okay. And then I assume it's first come, first serve from there. Once it opens up, first come, first serve on getting.
I will let Kim answer that question very soon. Or actually, would you like to answer it now, Kim, I guess?
Sure.
I'm going to bring Kim Rule on.
So,
Hmm?
so the last question was,
Well, and actually, maybe because these two topics are fairly related, and I know Kim has other Kimberly has another question too. Maybe it makes sense for you to just proceed through your slides quickly, and then we'll come back to questions to see if any of them are answered in your presentation.
that
Yeah, I think
works
that's a good
great.
idea.
You
Thank
got a sticky note, Kimberly, so don't forget.
Okay.
Don't forget your question.
Yeah, so just to kind of go from there again, my name is Kim Rule. I'm the Director of Family and Subsidy Support here at OE Castle. Going to talk a little bit about some of the program updates for this year, so piggybacking off of kind of where Adam has left off. And again, not to be repetitive, but this year brings some different changes that, of course, Adam just talked about, which really are legislative and budget decisions made earlier this year. I think for us as an office, it's important to know that our goal is to continue for this program to continue operating high quality, the sustainable program that focus on serving those families at the highest need. We know that requires adjustment sometimes for families as well as providers. So we really are committed to supporting programs as we move into this new school year with some different changes to the program. Just high level, just wanted to talk about what are the big impacts programmatically this year for the program. And then one from our legislative session, there were some impacts to eligibility. So household income changed to 140 of the federal poverty level.
Just as a technical matter, it actually changed to 135 in the budget bill, right?
Yes, but it was a system limitation, and that we were using 100.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, that's a good point because that's been confusing a little bit. So parents and guardians must be working in school or in job training, and job search, which was a previous qualifying activity, is no longer. So those are some changes here. The scope of the voucher will cover the pre-K child only this year. So the other children or siblings in that household will be added to the case and can be added to the CCDF wait list. In years past, we authorized the whole family at one time. So we won't be doing that this year. We'll just be focusing on that 4-year-old. And as Adam said previously, funding and reimbursement changed with that voucher cap being around 6,800 and that weekly provider rate being 147.82. And again, because we're just using those state dollars. And again, looking at enrollment at 2,500 statewide, we do need to include a portion of those will be our limited eligibility families, and those families are able to come in at a little higher SMI, so state median income, so we can serve a little broader group of families there. Vouchers begin when the pre-K year starts for programs. That's an important piece this year, and that's typically, depending on the program, late July, early August. And then our pre-K programs will be using the tool from the Indiana Department of Education, iSprout, for assessment this year, which is a change that we're really excited about.
And if I've done the math right, then for that 6,800 at 147.82 a week, that's like a 46 weeks.
It is. It's about 46-week voucher. And then at the end of that year, there is, when that 46 week is up, these are 53-week vouchers if the family needs them. So at the end of that year, we do provide wrap care that families can, because the school year ends and then summer happens, and typically they still need care. So we fund through that, the rest of that.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yes. I think some of the things that we looked at as we gear up for this next couple of weeks, we are going to begin processing applications for On My Way pre-K vouchers in the coming weeks. We're hoping to start this next week, in fact, as our system allows us to be ready to do that. We have thousands of families that have applied, so we know that the need is very high. Eligibility offices, as well as our On My Way pre-K manager team, are all ready, boots on the ground, ready to support families and programs as we make these changes. Families will be contacted directly. They have a lot of support for them to help navigate not only the application process, but also just some of the changes that are happening to ensure that when they receive this invitation to come into this benefit, they know what it is. And so we really do really work hard with those families to ensure that they're making the decision that best meets the need for them. And even with some of the changes that we've talked about from legislation, as we have looked at the wait list and our oncoming applications, we do anticipate the majority of those families are still going to be eligible. So we are really excited about that as we look at those applications that we're going to begin to pull. And then I would just say the last thing here is we have a lot of support available. We have updated the On My Way pre-K webpage. We know that providers and families with changes will have lots of questions, and so we have updated those FAQs accordingly, and we continue to do so. We have any support resource that they need is there, and we continue to add to it as we see the need. So I do encourage, not only for providers, but for families, we have created kind of 2 separate content areas there on the website that they can go and hopefully get some answers to their question. And there's always a person that's available, whether it's at the eligibility office, our team, or pre-K managers. So you can find all of that information there. So I think that is it for pre-K. So before I go to CCDF waitlist, do you have any questions there? Maybe
I think this is just one more slide.
Yes, it's just one more.
Let's just proceed through that, and then
Yeah, this one is,
we'll
while not happy numbers, but we do continue to see our voucher wait list, and this includes On My Way, as well as CCDF, increase every month. This is of May of 25. We were sitting at a little over 23,000 children on our wait list. And as that continues to grow, then of course our active vouchers that we're serving decreases slightly. I think in May it was a little over 60,000 active vouchers that we have currently. And as Adam said, we're continuing to offer those reauthorization services for those families as they continue to need it. But we do see that there are some dropping off there very slowly.
Do we know what that number of children who will matriculate to kindergarten is that's in that 60,000?
Not off the top of my head. I think we'd have to dig into
We
that.
analyze that. That's
Yeah.
part of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
That
No, absolutely. I think that would just maybe help for.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I think that's a good one to pull out. I think because I have gotten that question a few times here just recently, and so it's hard to nail down a little bit, but yeah, I think that we can.
Yeah, not all families.
That's right.
choose to go.
They don't choose to go.
I think the biggest, from a big macro perspective here, is that even though there's been a wait list for effectively 6 months now, overall demand for CCDF and On My Way vouchers continues to increase, even in the face of a wait list, which is, the demand's there around these things.
100%, yeah. Great. Sorry, more to say there, Kim?
Nope, I think
Okay.
that's it.
Kimberly, I inartfully stopped you a minute ago. All right, thanks for your question now.
That's okay. I actually have two now. But the first one, just trying to understand the allocation. So I believe you said, I apologize, I didn't have my glasses on, but the pre-K education vouchers from the state was 29 million or 26
million.
Okay. So is there a reason for the buffer there? Because with the 2,500 vouchers at 6,800 max, that comes to 17 million. So the 9 million in between, what is that being used for?
Well, it's twofold. One, there's some expenses and costs for the On My Way program that come out of that fund.
Okay.
And then the other one is this idea, and Kim mentioned it earlier around, right, that it's twofold. One, we provide additional 7 weeks of care, right? That there's a cost for that too, on top of that, right? So the 6,800 is for the 47 weeks for the year, right? There's 7 weeks more of vouchers, and those On My Way vouchers can then convert to a CCDF voucher, which that child and that family can have that not just for additional 7 weeks, but for potentially years in the future.
Okay.
So as we sit here today, we want to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible and being conservative around making sure that we're not enrolling more kids that we can't fund.
Right. Okay.
And to follow up on that is that we are also, this is one of those things, we are also trying to hone that down, because at the end of the day, we want to enroll as many kids as possible in this program.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my second question regarding the RAP care that you just kind of referenced. So, like you said, it can go up to the 53. So if the 46 weeks has been exhausted, they can get more for the additional 6 or 7 weeks for RAP. Does that only come into play at that point, or, not just for summer, but what about before and after care during the
Those are
year?
part of that as well.
So
Yeah.
during the year, so even if it's not extended to 53 weeks, they can still benefit from it.
And that's part of that
During
funding, and that's part of that
the-
funding as well, right? We have to
Okay.
account for it.
Okay.
Yeah, good, very good question. Thank you. Rob, did we get you?
And that's what I
I
was
was
gonna
just
ask.
gonna come back to that.
Sorry, I apologize for
That's
it.
okay, no, that's all right.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Rob?
I appreciate you guys not forgetting about me, but Kim had a great question. I'm glad she got to ask that. But also, I want to go back to with the unbraiding of the state and federal funds when it comes to the On My Way pre-K vouchers. Does that mean now 2024 legislation we hope to get put in where K through 12 education providers automatically qualify for On My Way pre-K dollars? When we tried to implement that last year, we were told, well, since the funds are braided federally, you still had to go through the LLEP process before your school could accept the On My Way pre-K dollars. That was because the funds were braided with CCDF. Now that those are not braided, no federal funds involved, and schools automatically qualify to accept On My Way pre-K vouchers. Because we are already education providers like the 2024 legislation enabled.
Let us get back to you on that one, Rob. That's a very good question. You make a very good point. We will get back to the ELAC on this, and you specifically. Yes.
It may be a moot point due to the numbers, but at the same time, I just wanted to see if that did have an impact. So thank you. I appreciate that, and I'll look forward to hearing from you.
No, very good question, Rob. Thank you.
Other questions from folks online? And then I just wondered, Kim or Adam, have we seen a difference in providers signing up to participate in the On My Way pre-K program year over year, given sort of where we would expect it to be at this point in the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely, one of the things that we did with these changes is go ahead and reach out to all 13, like anyone that was enrolled in, anyone that was coming on new to make sure they knew what the difference was. So we have seen some programs that are opting out, not necessarily wanting to remove their application and never do it again, but maybe give it a break a year to see what would happen next year. So of course, we respect those decisions and hope to support them through any questions that they have. But I think that we are seeing not a tremendous, we are tracking it, so I can't give you for sure numbers, but we have seen some programs opt out. But I think it is, it will be a decision for them based on where they're at and what will work best for them. So.
And as we go through this, in 6 months from now, right, once we have more data around what the effects of this is, right, we are looking forward to sharing those with lab.
Great, thank you. All right, hearing no further questions from my fellow committee members, we will proceed. Thank you, Kim, for that update.
Thank you for having me.
Tequila.
Good afternoon. I am Tequila. I am the Director of Licensing for the office, and I'm going to talk about micro facilities. And so micro facilities, as Adam talked about a few minutes ago, we talked about this last year, starting last year, of what we're doing with micro facilities. And we had 6 programs that were awarded, and so they had a very tight timeline to open in a very, very short timeline. And we have 5 of those programs that have opened by that deadline. One that is very close, who should open by the summer. But so what we're showing here is some of the grand opening photos and just talk about the capacity. So Woodland and Lake County, they opened in the church. They found a community organization they partnered with. They opened in the church. They had a space. They have the capacity of 30 children in one large space that they're able to split that classroom. So very much of what the micro facility pilot is allowing untraditional spaces to operate as a child care, being able to divide their spaces into smaller classrooms. Bloom at Highland Academy of Vigo County, also capacity of 30. They are in not a shared space, but again, able to open multiple classrooms within a space. El Pascadino Learning Center in St. Joe County, very much the micro facility idea of being in a shared building, like upstairs is a restaurant, they're downstairs in the bottom, they're out on the lake, so very much a community space in the middle of downtown. So she has 2 classrooms of preschool and then a school age in that shared space. She is one that started as a home provider, and at her grand opening, she talked about how this was her American dream to open a child care center. So the micro facility allowed her to be able to do that. We Care is a ministry that, again, shares space. They're renting space in another child care ministry. And then We Warrior Academy, same thing. They are a shared space in a church. And so all of these grand openings had community members or legislation representatives there to talk about the pilot and how it was very beneficial for their community. So many of them talked about the need for childcare in the area and how being able to have the micro facility and being able to use themselves as the administrator of multiple places will help in the cost, and just the limited amount of rules help them open quickly. They all had to meet fire marshal inspection. The buildings are safe. We did all of those things, but they talked about just the support of the office and being able to open quickly. And so this is just some of their environments, and you can see that it's a shared space. So most of these are more than one classroom. So on one side, and they're able to have natural divides to divide the space into multiple classrooms. So this is just some of their spaces. And so wanted to show you some of their spaces just to show that it was more of how multiple different programs did different things with their space, but they all met the rules and the regulations of the micro facilities. And all of them had major support from the community. And they talked about how that was very helpful in helping them to license. And
Well,
then,
that's tremendously exciting. I'll just say, I do think that micro sites were on our very first roadmap that we ever adopted back in 2022. So it's really awesome to see those come to fruition. And I just wonder, as you're gaining experience with those, and I love the variety and all the different sort of lessons that you'll be able to learn from them, are there things that already you've sort of internalized that, as we think about broader licensing reform, something we've learned from the micro facilities that will translate?
so I will tell you that we are partnering with
Someone.
oh my gosh.
What is?
Wonder School,
Yes.
thank you. I'm like, why did that name? And so so the providers, we did a survey. So the providers are tracking. And so it's a list of questions that we're asking them to track for us so that we can track this data. And then with them, we're asking them about the licensure process, all of those things, the regulation, some of the things that we took out from that was in license for center that is not in there. And we're asking their feedback on that. So we're gathering all of that information so we can give you a more informed decision and not just, some of those things. I will tell you that one of the things that we did make sure that we wanted to be sure is because it's not just licensing that they have to follow, it's state fire marshal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so even though it's not necessarily in regulation that we said that they had to meet state fire marshal regulations, it was important to make sure that they did, because even though we license them, if the state fire marshal doesn't approve it, then it still is not going to happen. So it's those things that we had to make sure that we thought about, what other entities do they still have to make sure they're in compliance with? And so that was with that tight timeline, right? And so some of them had to struggle and to make sure that they met because they're what the local zoning say. Are you able to put this business in this type of program? So it's all of those things to really think about as a program type, because it's not just licensing that they have to follow. So those are some of the lessons that we were able to talk through and make sure that we had, because that was some of their tight timeline, making sure that the local
Absolutely.
area.
It's all of those things
Yes.
come together, right? I remember that
Yes.
from the regulatory reform.
Uh-huh.
And are micro facilities able to participate in hazard quality, or is there anything that prevents them from doing
So we
that?
did not, because of the tight timeline and knowing that we took out so much in the regulatory reform and not knowing, we did not opt for them to do past the quality in the future when it becomes, and because it's a, right, in the future, potentially, but because this is a pilot, we did not do this in the pilot phase. But when they become a program type, then yes.
Yeah, I just think it's so important as we move forward on the health and safety changes that are necessary and welcome, that we're, at the same time, just maintaining that commitment to what's happening within the four walls.
Absolutely.
Whatever those four walls look like. So
Absolutely.
I'll look forward
And
to
I
that.
will tell you that because this is a pilot, we have our emerging provider specialists are still working very closely with these programs to make sure, because there are things that we have allowed that we're not in a licensed center, right? You have a combined classroom. This is new for providers.
Sure.
So we're providing guidance with them, and they're still working with their emerging provider specialists, being able to ask questions and have that ongoing support as they work through some of these nuances.
Thank you. Other questions for Tequila around those pilots before she talks licensing in general?
Are these a facility or, spaces for 30 children in each of those counties? Are they for pre-K children?
They do not have to be only for pre-K children. We have infants all the way up to school age.
Oh,
It's a
great.
yeah,
Thank you.
So the difference is they can have a combined ages in those spaces. And so that was the benefit. So they could have an infant with a 3-year-old, just depending on, it's a different ratio that they have to look at.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, thank you.
It'll actually be a really interesting experiment from a learning perspective to understand whether those mixed age groups are actually driving improved learning outcomes, which I think, some other states have seen. So,
and that is one of the things that one of the home providers said. She never wanted to do a center because she had a home and she loved her children being able to be in the same space because they learned together. And so being able to do this, she was able to get that feel. And so that's why she opted to be in the pilot as well.
Great.
Can you remind me what the time frame is for the pilot? When does that pilot end?
We can't remember off the top of our heads. The latest next year.
It is next year, but we are looking, yes, it is next year.
Yeah.
So how will you determine the success of the pilot to know whether this will be something that's more permanent?
The data that we're collecting from the childcare providers now. They're doing a monthly survey that they're giving us that data and inspections.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think it would be interesting to think about what other data points will help you evaluate that. And it is things like, what's the overall impact on access? What's the overall impact on learning, and what's happening within the classroom? So yeah, it'd be interesting to think about a more fulsome evaluation and how we might get to sort of the best evidence possible for you there. So great. Childcare licensing in general.
So regulatory reform, we are definitely still working on the revisions of the licensing. So that is an ongoing, we will give more updates. Our focus is on reducing the burden, as we talked about, and maintaining health and safety. And then also, as a result of how this pilot is going, we are really looking into making the microfacility into an hospice as a provider type. And so, can't give you deadlines on when rules will be done yet, but just know that we are in the ongoing process of working on them, and we are looking at every hospice type to make sure that we are truly focused on health and safety.
I think we were hopeful in overall reducing the number of hospice types too. So I'll just put that out there for the good of the record here as we change to our next topic. So thanks for that. Any other questions for Tequila before we let her go free? All right, thank you. And then I just have a couple of legislative updates. Thank you. That I will share because they relate to the work of this committee as it moves forward. And the first is there was a general bill that was passed, I think that applies, as I understand it, and OE Castle team will of course correct me here, but applies to a number of committees that meet certain criteria that will now have to submit a biannual report. We already have a report that we submit each year, and so we'll have to understand how those two things come together, but we've got our eye on House Enrolled 1272 to make sure that we are in compliance there. There was also some language in Senate Enrolled Act 366, which speaks a bit to the issue that Rob mentioned before, and I think the challenges that schools have had over time in accessing On My Way pre-K dollars. And so by August 1st, the state teams across both Department of Education and the Office of Early Childhood are prepared to demonstrate how schools have sort of the most streamlined access to On My Way pre-K. And I will say, I think, this is an issue that we've worked on in bits and pieces over the past many years. And so there's a lot of progress to report. And it's really more about giving a sort of firm sense of where we are to the General Assembly more than anything else is my take on that. At least others can chime in. And then lastly, Senate Enrolled Act 463 expanded this group. And so as new members are appointed, there will be some new friends. One who will represent an out-of-school time program, one provider, and then somebody who represents an organization that is versed in the broader out-of-school community and focused on strengthening their activities statewide. So we're looking forward to seeing those new members added to the roster. With that, we have reached a moment for public comment. I see we have a number of individuals in the room, and if anyone would like to offer public comment, I would ask that you please join us up here to do that and keep your remarks to between 2 and 3 minutes, please. There's a race to the podium here. I think no public comment offered. Any last thoughts, Adam?
Thank everyone again that's rolling off the ELAC for all of your work over the last few years. thank you. This is the amount of detail and things that you all have dug into for childcare and early care and education space in Indiana has been, I knew it from the outside looking in, but over the last 4 months since I took this position, it's more than I ever imagined. And so thank you for all of the time, the thought, the energy to being a part of this. And yes, thank you all.
Wonderful. Well, I think I can speak on behalf of my teammates that it has been our pleasure. And, I know we're in a very dynamic time in the state of Indiana and around the country as it relates to early care and education. And I think, with that level of change comes understandable concerns from individuals who are affected, but also a great deal of opportunity for how we might create something that is lasting and sustainable and achieves our primary aim of making sure that children have everything they need to flourish. And so you will have certainly mine, and I feel confident my other committee members that are rolling off support as you endeavor to do that very hard task.
Thank you.